Imagine, if you can, the entire HR department for the U.S. federal government just systematically changed, re-engineered,
Right.
but not for efficiency, not to make things better.
No, quite the opposite, it sounds like.
Exactly. The claim is it was done to obscure, to surveil, and ultimately to purge people.
It sounds like something out of a movie, honestly, that level of infiltration.
It really does. But according to our sources today, it's described as very real.
Hmm.
Welcome to the Deep Dive. We're the show where we try to unpack these really complex stories, pull out the key bits, and get you properly informed.
And today we're diving into this alleged DOGE takeover of U.S. federal systems. It's a pretty astonishing story.
It is, and our guide through this is going to be the firsthand findings, the interpretations of an anonymous insider. We're just calling him Jay.
Right. So Jay's account, his technical analysis. That's our main source here. And he's got, nearly 30 years in cybersecurity.
Yeah, about 29 years. So he brings a deep technical background. And our mission today, really, is to try and grasp the alleged scope of this compromise.
Understand the methods Jay says were used.
And motivations behind them, as Jay interprets them anyway.
And what it all means, ultimately, for you listening, for American citizens, and just for the basic integrity of how government is supposed to work.
Absolutely. Jay offers this really unique, unvarnished perspective, from how he stumbled onto it almost by accident to meticulously unraveling what sounds like a really complex, politically charged operation.
So yeah, get ready, because if Jay's account holds water, it might really challenge how you think about information security, government, the whole lot.
Okay, so let's start right at the beginning. Jay's entry into this whole thing. It wasn't exactly conventional, was it?
No, not at all. You'd think someone with his experience, nearly 3 decades, would be formally brought in.
Right, like a government consultant or something.
Exactly. But Jay describes it very differently. He said his initial motivation was really personal, almost accidental.
He mentioned being unemployed at the time.
Yeah, unemployed, and he used the words drunk and pissed off. Just raw frustration.
Wow, okay.
And it was in that state, apparently, that he was watching the news, and the reports were about this group called DOGE, and its alleged infiltration of the U.S. Office of Personnel Management, OPM.
And just to remind everyone, OPM is basically the HR department for the whole federal government, right?
Yeah.
Millions of employees, hiring, retiring, all that.
Pretty much the central nervous system for the federal workforce, yeah.
So he's watching these reports.
And what really jumped out at him, what sparked his curiosity, was a specific detail. The news mentioned servers being plugged in at OPM.
Plugged in. Seems minor.
To most people, maybe. But for Jay, with his cybersecurity background, that was like a huge flashing red light.
Why? What's so significant about just plugging in servers?
Well, large government IT infrastructure changes are usually planned, methodical, documented. You don't just casually plug in new servers at a place like OPM without a lot of process.
Okay. So that detail felt off.
Exactly. It felt off. And that seemingly tiny detail became the crucial thread he started pulling on. It wasn't a formal investigation. It was his own curiosity, triggered by something that just didn't sound right from a technical standpoint.
So it wasn't passive curiosity. He didn't just watch the news and shrug.
No. He immediately started digging. He describes actively looking into OPM's infrastructure himself.
How? What could he even see from the outside?
Well, things like historical records of infrastructure changes, DNS registrations.
DNS being the internet's phone book, essentially.
Right. Translating website names to IP addresses, changes that are logged, publicly visible if you know where to look. He was meticulously going through those records.
So like digital archaeology.
Kind of, yeah. He said this technical diligence wasn't just, killing time. It provided the actual clues he needed to start piecing together what he believed was the real intent behind all this activity.
Okay, so he's looking at public data, DNS records.
Yeah.
But that can only tell you so much, right?
True. And his investigation apparently went much further pretty quickly. A really critical element, he stated, was getting information from inside.
Whistleblowers.
Effectively, yes. He said he was receiving direct reports from actual employees within different federal agencies.
Wow. People on the inside feeding him information.
That's what he claims. These individuals were apparently telling him what was happening on the ground, what they were being told to do by this new DOGE team.
And what was their feeling about it?
Jay emphasized they didn't trust it at all. There was significant internal disquiet, it seems, right from the start. The fact they felt they had to reach out to someone like Jay externally says a lot about their level of concern.
Definitely. But how did Jay know this information was reliable? Insider tips can be tricky.
Absolutely. And he stresses this point, the importance of organically verifying everything. He wasn't just accepting things at face value.
So cross-referencing.
Constantly. He used his 29 years of experience applying forensic analysis techniques, scrutinizing that DNS history we talked about, even examining email headers from mass emails that federal employees were apparently getting.
Email headers.
Yeah,
That's the metadata showing the email's path and origin, right?
exactly. All that behind-the-scenes routing information. By looking at all these different pieces, the technical data, the insider reports, the email metadata, he built up his confidence. He cross-referenced relentlessly.
Digital detective work, like you said.
Pretty much. That rigorous process is what convinced him that what he was seeing wasn't just noise or mistakes, but a deliberate, real-time operation unfolding.
And what were the first big red flags he spotted through this process?
Well, one of the first things was the speed. He noticed a significant amount of new infrastructure being built almost immediately as soon as the changeover happened on January 20th.
So not a gradual rollout.
No, it suggested a pre-planned rapid deployment, like flicking a switch on a specific date. That speed itself was unusual for government IT.
Okay, speed is one thing. What else? You mentioned mistakes earlier.
Yes. Jay's assessment is that because this alleged operation was so widespread, and apparently executed by a group that, in his words, had never done anything like it before, they made major errors.
Inexperienced players on a big stage.
That's the picture Jay paints. And these mistakes weren't just typos. He calls them an exploitable asset for someone like him.
Exploitable how? What kind of mistakes gave him insight?
A key one was how they built this new system. He saw from the technical evidence that they were constructing an alternative infrastructure designed to run sideband to the official OPM systems.
Sideband, like alongside the main system.
Exactly. Think of it like building a secret parallel highway next to the main regulated one. This sideband system wasn't integrated, it ran separately.
And why would they do that?
According to Jay, the chilling part is why. This alternative system was built specifically to perform actions that the legitimate official infrastructure would not allow them to do.
So bypassing the built-in rules, the security, the regulations.
Precisely. That immediately told Jay their intent wasn't improvement or efficiency, but circumvention, bypassing controls.
And their mistakes in setting this up.
Made it easier for him to see what they were doing. Their alleged inexperience, ironically, left a trail for him to follow to figure out what the hell they were doing, as he put it.
So those early mistakes were the key to understanding the whole alleged strategy.
That's Jay's perspective, yes.
And at the heart of that strategy, he says, was obfuscation, hiding things, especially with email.
Yes, specifically hijacking the federal email system, focusing on HR communications coming from OPM. The core goal, he states, was setting it up to completely obscure the origin of the sender.
Making it impossible to know who really sent an email.
Essentially, yes. He detailed how existing security measures, things like public key infrastructure, PKI, those digital certificates that verify identity and other trust mechanisms between government machines were allegedly systematically dismantled for emails coming from opm.gov.
So the basic ability to trust an email from OPM was broken.
According to Jay's analysis, destroyed. Deliberately.
Wow. And he mentioned the main HR email address itself changed, hropm.gov.
Radically transformed based on his findings. It used to be a defined single point of contact. Now he described it as a whole farm of several other email mailboxes, like hundreds. Some manned, some maybe not.
Hundreds of mailboxes instead of one. Why?
Jay interprets this massive, rapid expansion and fragmentation as a strategic move away from traceable, standard HR operations. It creates confusion, makes it harder to audit, harder to track who is doing what, less transparency.
Okay, so they obscure the sender, fragment the contact points.
Yeah.
What else? You mentioned a progress report ploy.
Right. This is another layer Jay described. Federal employees were apparently told to email hropm.gov to report their progress.
It sounds like typical bureaucratic stuff, maybe.
That's how it might appear, but Jay asserts emphatically it had nothing to do with actually wanting to know about progress.
So what was the real purpose, according to him?
Twofold in his analysis. First, it was a way to verify identities to confirm that everyone that they thought had an email address was indeed who they thought it was, a forced check-in.
Okay, confirming the employee list. What's the second part?
This is the more insidious part, Jay points out. While verifying the employees, this same process allegedly destroyed any ability for the users to verify who they were as administrators.
Creating a one-way mirror. They see the employees, but the employees can't see who's demanding the reports.
Exactly. A one-way trust dynamic. Employees are vetted, administrators remain anonymous, hidden behind this opaque mailbox farm. Jay sees this as a deliberate psychological tactic to break trust.
Okay, this is getting really intricate. And the comparison Jay made to ransomware crews, that feels significant.
It really is. It highlights, in Jay's view, a fundamental shift in how this group allegedly operated. He said the OPM mailbox setup was almost a mirror to what a lot of ransomware crews will use.
Why would they mimic ransomware operators?
Because ransomware crews know their recipients, the victims, are hostile. They're angry, they're probably calling the FBI.
Right. So they need to communicate without being traced.
Precisely. Their infrastructure is built for concealment to prevent the sender's identity from ever being verified. Jay claims the alleged use of these very same protocols inside OPM points to an intent for non-traceable, potentially hostile communication within the government.
Hostile communication from leadership towards employees.
That's the implication of Jay's comparison. It suggests they were anticipating an adversarial relationship with their own workforce and built the systems accordingly. It wasn't designed for collaboration. It was designed, in his view, for control and operating outside normal accountability.
That's a disturbing parallel. It suggests that technical changes were just the foundation for something bigger.
Exactly. And that leads us into what Jay describes as the deeper political agenda he believes was driving all this.
Okay, so what was that agenda, according to Jay?
He described how the information collected, remember those progress reports, potentially other data too, was allegedly fed into a series of LLMs, large language models.
AI analysis, basically.
Sophisticated AI analysis, yes. And Jay claims this wasn't just for finding efficiencies or keywords. It was purportedly to figure out who is who, and more chillingly, to try to figure out loyalties.
Loyalties, based on emails and other data.
That's the allegation. Training AI to profile employees, potentially based on their communications, their connections, looking for perceived ideological alignment or lack thereof.
That's quite a leap from HR management.
A massive leap. And it gets even more alarming. Jay revealed a finding about U.S. Treasury data being involved.
Treasury data, like financial information.
He claims, yes, essentially the bank accounts and bank records of all American citizens, which would include all federal employees by default.
Wait, they pulled Treasury bank record data into this analysis?
That's Jay's assertion. He claims this deeply private financial data was specifically used to identify federal employees with ridiculously large bank accounts.
Why? What was the rationale given?
The official line apparently was that it was under the guise of a fraud investigation.
Okay, looking for fraud potentially makes sense.
But Jay is adamant that the true objective of this supposed fraud investigation was wholly political.
How so? What was the real goal, in his view?
He claims they were trying to map out connections, figure out who owned what companies, where, who belonged to what families that may have been aligned against the Trump administration.
Using financial data and other records to build political opposition maps?
That's precisely what Jay alleges. And the ultimate aim, he states starkly, was to sort out and find specific employees that belonged to specific political groups, religious groups, families, etc., and single them out and fire them immediately, like get rid of them.
So the tech, the data collection, the AI, it was all allegedly building towards a targeted political purge of the federal workforce.
That is Jay's unwavering interpretation, transforming a technical compromise into a tool for political control and ideological cleansing.
The sheer amount of data involved sounds staggering. Was it just Treasury and OPM emails?
Oh no, Jay detailed a much wider scope. He referred to it as creating a massive data lake. Beyond Treasury data, he claims they also pulled information from the IRS database.
Tax information on citizens, employees, corporations.
Allegedly, yes. Highly sensitive tax data. And they also integrated OPM's own internal records, including what he called the employee electronic filing systems.
What's in those filing systems?
According to Jay, it processes all document and image uploads by federal employees, things like address changes, other personal forms, and retains these records for the last 15 years.
So a deep historical profile of employee submissions, locations, personal details.
An incredibly intimate picture, yes. Who submitted what, when they submitted it, where they were living, all allegedly fed into this analytical engine.
How could he possibly know the specifics of what data was being pulled and how it was analyzed?
This is another critical point. Jay asserts that this data integration, the sources, the analysis methods, it was all explained in the code itself.
The software code they were writing.
Yes. And crucially, he mentioned that Some awesome OPM employee happened to take pictures of the code with their phone.
Photographic evidence from an insider.
That's what Jay claims he received, providing what he describes as direct evidence of these alleged operations, straight from the source code outlining these data pulls and analyses.
That's incredible bravery from that employee, if true. Did Jay identify who was leading this technical build-out?
He did. He named Riccardo Biasini as the individual leading the group, building this infrastructure, effectively running the DevOps and DevSecOps for OPM.
So the person in charge of building and securing OPM's new systems.
Ironically, yes. The architect of the very systems allegedly being subverted, according to Jay's account.
Was Biasini's role clear?
Jay noted it seemed intentionally murky. His role was apparently constantly swapped around, making it kind of hard to figure out, like, who's doing what. Jay suggested this might have been a tactic to obscure accountability.
And how did Jay confirm Biasini's involvement?
Again, through alleged digital evidence. Jay mentioned seeing screenshots of their GitHub repositories and stuff.
GitHub, the code collaboration platform.
Right. He claims these repositories contain names indicating who was writing what code and, significantly, what the code was doing, allegedly detailing the very functions we've been discussing, the data integration, the analysis, etc.
So putting this all together, Jay's picture isn't just a hack. It's, in his view, a systematic, documented, politically driven intelligence operation targeting federal employees using their most sensitive personal data.
That's the disturbing portrait Jay paints, yes. The scale, the types of data allegedly involved bank accounts, tax info, family ties, it points towards something far beyond typical cybersecurity concerns. It suggests, in his analysis, a deliberate weaponization of government data for political ends.
Let's talk about the operational side more. You mentioned flaws, accidental whistleblowers. These seem key to understanding how they operated, according to Jay.
Absolutely. These incidents shine a light on the alleged methods and perhaps the vulnerabilities of the operation. Jay discussed those strange emails, the tell me what you did last week ones.
Like the plain text, vague requests.
Exactly. They struck employees as odd because they lacked the usual official formatting, identification, signatures, just very basic, almost unprofessional for government comms.
And Jay's interpretation wasn't just that they were poorly written.
No, based on his conversations with employees who received them, he interpreted these as an intentional scout to completely destroy the morale of federal employees.
Destroy morale.
By creating uncertainty, demanding vague justifications for their work from an unidentifiable source. It breeds anxiety, distrust, and he noted not all agencies got these emails, suggesting it was targeted, a psychological tool in his view.
Wow. Okay. And then there's the J.M. Cooper story. That sounds like a major turning point.
It really does. Initially, Jay said he suspected this person, J.M. Cooper 176, might be part of the Doge crew because his name popped up in connection with the systems being built.
But he wasn't.
Turned out, according to Jay, Cooper was a contractor hired to set up the specific DevSecOps tools, the GitHub Enterprise instance for OPM and Microsoft's Azure cloud.
Okay, a technical contractor doing his job.
Pretty much. But here's the accidental leak. Cooper apparently kept logs of it, logs of his setup process, and then used those logs to create online tutorials on how to set up GitHub Enterprise.
Tutorials using real OPM data.
That's the shocking part Jay described. Cooper allegedly published these tutorials online with sample data from his initial installation, which included all OPM stuff, internal domain names, directory query names, sensitive configuration details.
Oh, wow. That's a huge operational security mistake.
Massive. Jay noted Cooper really should not have done it from an OBSC point of view. He inadvertently exposed critical internal details of the very system he was building.
But for Jay, this mistake was helpful.
Incredibly helpful. A gold mine, he called it. He suddenly realized, I just found the guy who built the server, and Cooper's own tutorials told me how he built it.
So Cooper accidentally validated Jay's findings.
Precisely. It was crucial external validation. Jay said it helped him verify that I wasn't insane and that I wasn't crazy and the stuff that I was seeing was real. It connected the dots from an unexpected source.
Did Jay talk to Cooper?
He did. He reached out and found Cooper wasn't a Doge acolyte at all. Instead, Cooper felt kind of pissed off, felt he'd been dicked around, as Jay put it, by the Doge team.
So Cooper felt used or misled.
Apparently so. Jay described Cooper as a younger developer, maybe mid-20s, who likely hadn't read all the dense federal security policies and was essentially unaware that what they were asking him to do was like breaking several federal laws.
And what happened to Cooper?
Jay revealed that Cooper is now apparently a whistleblower, providing evidence to a congressional subcommittee. Because he was there, setting things up, he got a lot of the marching orders and can testify about what he was asked to do.
Another insider-turning whistleblower. That's significant.
Hugely significant. And it leads into the other major operational revelation Jay discussed, the Amy Gleason account.
Right, the phantom admin. What was so strange about this account?
The sheer level of access it allegedly had. Jay stated that despite Amy Gleason having a relatively limited role officially, where nobody really knew her day-to-day tasks, her account had super user access everywhere.
Everywhere, like across agencies.
Across, Jay claimed, like 14 different agencies. This included classified systems, unclassified systems, access to physical buildings, data centers, cloud installations, just pervasive administrative control.
One account with the keys to basically everything.
That's the picture. And Jay specifically highlighted that at one point around March and April, this single account allegedly controlled at least 80% of the entirety of Azure Gov Cloud with super user privileges.
80% of the secure government cloud? That's almost unbelievable. How is that even possible?
That's the question Jay raises. His interpretation is that this wasn't Amy Gleason herself wielding all this power, but that her account was being reused.
Reused how?
As a shared administrative account. He called it a pseudo account, like a master key or a phantom account.
Why use a phantom account like that?
Jay's theory is it was deliberate strategy for evasion. The purpose was to do all of the things that were outside of regulatory purview, meaning the rule-breaking activities. It's much easier, he argued, to scrub logs or delete audit trails for one shared phantom account than for a whole team of individuals using their own credentials. Centralize the illicit activity to make it disappear easier.
A single point for plausible deniability, almost.
Or implausible deniability, perhaps. But yes, a way to concentrate the questionable actions.
And was this access across all government agencies?
Interestingly, no. Jay observed this godlike access primarily across civilian agencies, health and hospitals, OPM, FDA, IRS, places that directly impact citizens.
But notably, Department of Defense, DoD, accounts were largely untouched. Jay said his sources indicated they were explicitly told not to touch that.
Suggesting a deliberate focus, avoiding the military side.
Exactly. It implies, in Jay's view, a specific strategic focus on civilian government functions, perhaps seeing them as softer targets or more relevant to their alleged political goals.
So, these operational details, the morale emails, Cooper's accidental leak, the Gleason phantom account, they don't just show incompetence, do they? Jay sees them as revealing the method.
That's right. Leveraging ignorance like Cooper's, creating single points of pervasive access like Gleason's account. It paints a picture, in Jay's analysis, of their modus operandi. And it definitely raises questions about the internal checks and balances, or the lack thereof, that allowed this to happen.
Which brings us to the really big picture Jay lays out, his comprehensive analysis of what he sees as DOJ's overall mission.
Right, he outlined 3 main goals, didn't he?
Yes. According to Jay's assessment, the first primary objective was allegedly to benefit Elon Musk. Specifically, to shut down any and all resistance and/or investigations into any of Elon Musk's companies.
Shut down government investigations into Musk's companies.
And, Jay added, destroying any particular bit of regulation they may be subjected to. So, using internal government access for private corporate benefit and deregulation, in Jay's interpretation.
That's a huge allegation.
Well,
what was the second mission he described?
The second, Jay stated, was to specifically create a sense of distrust in the functioning of the federal government.
How would they do that?
By disabling various agencies that have a direct effect towards consumers and citizens. Things like health agencies, personnel management. The idea, Jay claims, was that the public would feel the pain nearly almost immediately from a pared-down, less functional government, thus eroding trust. Deliberate degradation of services to foster public cynicism.
Wow. Okay, so shield Musk, erode public trust. What was the third mission?
This is perhaps the most chilling one Jay outlined. Specifically to demoralize and to cut the federal workforce of what they considered ideologically excess employees.
The purge we discussed earlier.
Exactly. And Jay explicitly connected this to what he calls Project 2025 dogma.
Project 2025 being that conservative plan for restructuring government.
Yes, the detailed blueprint for a potential transition. Jay interprets this alleged Doge activity as implementing parts of that ideology, removing anyone who didn't 100% agree with their agenda.
Leaving only those who agree or those who successfully pretend to agree.
That's his grim assessment. Successfully lied to their supervisors, as he put it. An ideologically filtered workforce, not one based on merit or experience.
The human impact of this, if Jay's numbers are right, sounds immense.
Devastating is the word he used.
Huh.
He estimated the Doge takeover has devastated no less than 30,000 people, possibly twice that number, directly.
30 to 60,000 federal employees directly impacted.
That's his estimate. He described them as previously like faithful government servants that have just been put out, and their future is destroyed over this politicized bee. He talked about the betrayal, the destroyed careers, the mental health toll.
And the long-term impact on attracting people to public service must be considerable.
You'd have to think so, right? If job security hinges on perceived political alignment, who would want to sign up?
So, given all this alleged activity, these devastating impacts, what about accountability? Has anyone faced consequences?
This is where Jay expressed profound frustration. He mentioned ongoing legal challenges, but feels, in his words, the judiciary is doing its best to fail us.
Meaning no real repercussions.
So far as he sees it, no repercussions or no consequences for the people who are actually behind all this crap.
That must be incredibly demoralizing for him and the others involved.
Deeply. He admitted it often feels like pissing in the wind without much positive feedback. He even made a very blunt, pessimistic prediction about Elon Musk facing no consequences for his alleged role in this. That level of frustration really comes through.
So if legal channels feel blocked, what does Jay see as the way forward for those still inside who disagree?
He described what he sees as the only real path for resistance left for some employees, to actually compound the sabotage.
Sabotage, like breaking things.
Not necessarily disruption, more like internal resistance through friction. Slowing down processes, throwing up roadblocks, doing things as slowly as you possibly can when faced with directives they believe are harmful or illegitimate.
Bureaucratic resistance, being grit in the gears.
Exactly. He calls the whistleblowers and leakers people that are totally dedicated to this particular mindset of being the dirt in the cogs, actively trying to slow the implementation of what they see as reductive and harmful policies. Quiet resistance from within.
And finally, Jay touched on the media's role in all this, or the lack of one.
Yeah, he expressed deep frustration there too. He believes traditional media outlets regularly refuses to speak against its masters, showing little interest in covering these deep systemic issues, even when presented with evidence.
He feels the story isn't getting out.
Pretty much. He contrasted the media silence with his own struggles to get the information public, suggesting a systemic reluctance to challenge powerful interests or report on these kinds of internal government compromises. A vacuum of accountability in his view.
Okay, so we've covered a huge amount of ground here, really diving deep into Jay's extraordinary and frankly deeply concerning account of this alleged Doge takeover.
Yeah, from that almost accidental start watching the news.
Right, to the forensic analysis, verifying network changes, uncovering things like the Amy Gleason phantom account. His expertise really allowed him to piece together this narrative.
A narrative of, as he sees it, a politically motivated agenda, sophisticated data misuse, and a shocking lack of accountability.
The details are stark. Obscuring email origins, allegedly weaponizing incredibly sensitive financial and tax data, the OPM records.
Yeah.
All, in his interpretation, for ideological purges.
It paints a grim picture of vulnerability and potential subversion within core government systems.
And Jay's commitment, despite the frustrations, despite the lack of consequences he perceives, it really underscores the role individual integrity can play when systems seem to fail.
Absolutely. His story, his perspective, it shows how deeply technology, policy, and political intent can get tangled up.
With huge potential consequences for everyone's privacy and our basic trust in how things are run.
And it leaves us with a pretty provocative thought, doesn't it?
It really does. If Jay's account is accurate, if seemingly technical adjustments to email systems or databases can enable this kind of alleged widespread surveillance and control, it makes you wonder, what systems are you relying on every day, perhaps unknowingly, that could potentially be weaponized in the future?